As an up-and-coming micro-influencer, nothing matters more to me than my fans. Building a community and showing you my most authentic self is what I pride myself on. I want you to know that I am one of you. I too put my Louboutins on one foot at a time, and yes, I do struggle with acne. But want to know what helps me keep my skin looking this good? With Totally Real Green Tea Foaming Cleanser, I keep my skin looking this radiant. And with my code SELLOUT20, you can get $20 off your first order of $10,000 or more. So go ahead, try it out, and look just like me. Ugh, God. At least that's over. I better get a good commission out of this. Let's just put on that skin blurring filter and what? We're still rolling? Cut it out, cut it out. In a time where humanity is so dependent on social media for connection, the rise of influencers has been both a blessing and a curse. Any degular person can set up their phone, record a video, and find themselves with a new platform, a new audience, and a non-traditional revenue stream. All you have to do is post content, and maybe a brand will send you a PR package on the off chance that you put their products on your page. Hey, it doesn't sound like a bad trade-off. As someone once said, I just want to be an influenza, sippin' Erewhon in Mercedes-Benza. My. What a lie. I would die to be like you. Obscure reference if you know you know. But the world of influencers is not all glitz and glam as they want you to believe. Cancellations and controversies are bad enough, am I right? But what about a secret cult making offerings to a mythical being in exchange for followers? Well, without further ado, hello, welcome back. It is a new day, a new sleigh, and a new video where I have something to say. And today we're going to be talking about this new thriller novel, which is Julie Chan is Dead. But first, let me give you a brief summary just so you know what you're about to get into. Julie Chan is Dead is a debut thriller novel following two twin girls, Julie Chan and Chloe Van Heusen. Despite having the exact same face, these two girls lead completely different lives. When their parents died in a car accident, they were sent to two separate homes. Chloe was adopted by the Van Heusens, a very affluent and wealthy white family. The Van Heusens were in some hot water after it was uncovered that they were making racist comments against Asian people. So to make their Chinese investors happy, they decided to adopt an Asian daughter. But they only wanted one. So Julie was sent to go live with her aunt, a woman who sees her as a burden and uses her as a cash cow. Julie's life was hard, to say the least. She grew up knowing that she was unwanted, unloved, and separated from her twin sister. So when Chloe shows up out of the blue, Julie is eager to reconnect with her. And then she finds out that the only reason that Chloe went to go find her was for YouTube content. That's right, Chloe Van Heusen is a major influencer at this time and decided to make this hashtag emotional video of her reuniting with her sister. So after gifting her a house on the edge of town, Chloe decides that's enough sistering for one day and disappears from Julie's life once again. When the story starts, Julie is working at a dead-end job in a grocery store and completely loathes her sister for leaving her. Meanwhile, Chloe is unaffected. She's seemingly at the top of the world and dominating the influencer space. But one day, Julie receives a mysterious call from her sister in which all she says is, "It was a mistake." Weird, creepy. Despite having a lot of anger towards her sister, Julie decides that she's gonna go check up on her, so she visits her apartment in Manhattan. But when she opens the door to investigate, Julie finds Chloe's dead body on the floor of her kitchen. She immediately calls the police, but when they arrive and mistakenly identify Julie as Chloe, she doesn't correct them. Julie decides that she has had enough struggle for one lifetime and deserves to live it up like Chloe. So she takes on Chloe's identity and has to learn to navigate the world of influencers without getting caught. All leading up to an island getaway with infamous influencer Bella Marie. She will be surrounded by all of Chloe's closest influencer friends and the people that are most likely to figure out Julie's deep, dark secret. Now, if you're subscribed to my channel or you've watched my videos regularly, you know that I don't really read adult novels, and especially not thrillers. This isn't typically the genre I like to pick up. But when I read this summary, oh my god, you could not keep me away from this book. I decided to go a little outside of my comfort zone while reading this book, and oh boy, do I have so many things I want to discuss. So that's it for the spoiler-free summary. If you don't want to know what happens next, I suggest clicking off the video now. Come back to it once you finish the book, because I'm going to get into a whole analysis and it'll be full of spoilers, and you don't want to see that. Of course, you want to read the book first. So you can come back and we will welcome you with open arms. I will give a trigger warning if you do pick up this book. There are references to, of course, murder, animal abuse, which I know is a really big deal breaker for a lot of people, cults, religious mania, and just in general, this book can be very unnerving. It can be a little graphic, a little gory, and of course there is reference to murder. So if you are sensitive to any of those topics, don't pick up this book. It's okay. You don't have to. I'm going to leave out some of the gory and graphic details in my review, so it'll just be referencing what happens. So hopefully it's a little bit more palatable. I will be discussing what this book says about social media, race and solidarity, a little bit of religious mania, and of course, the world of influencers. All while going over what I liked, disliked, and the strengths and weaknesses of this book. I know it sounds a little chaotic, but once I explain to you what this book is about, you'll understand why. But don't worry, we're gonna go on this ride together, and I have organized it into chapters for your viewing pleasure. So now, let's get on with the rest of the video with spoilers. So normally I do like to talk about the plot before I get into the characters, but there's something I need to get out of the way first, and it has to do with our main character, Julie. First and foremost, what will make or break your read of this book is knowing that Julie, our narrator, is not supposed to be likable. She is an unreliable narrator with a horribly effective skill at making you feel bad for her. When I first started reading the book, I noticed that she was contradicting herself, and I was like, that doesn't seem very good. That doesn't seem like a good writing choice. But then it occurred to me that that was the point. It was to signal to you as the reader that she's lying and she's not a very good person. Julie is the definition of a morally gray character, where at times you see her feel something sort of like human emotion, and at other times she seems like the scum of the earth. What I really like about how her character is written is that she has a way of making you as the reader give her a chance over and over again. She's literally the toxic ex that you keep going back to, where she does just enough good to lull you into a false sense of security, only to obliterate that trust in the next chapter. When we're first introduced to Julie, you feel bad for her, and with reason. Her parents passed away, she's living in a house where she's completely unwanted, and her sister is living it up in New York City. Obviously, she's been dealt kind of a crappy hand. Her own sister used her for content, and she can't even live her life without people mistaking her for Chloe. So when she talks about hating her sister, it doesn't feel unfounded. You understand where she's coming from. And then when Chloe calls her and Julie gets worried, you start to root for her. Checking on her sister after all that she's done feels selfless and noble, and she seems like a genuinely good person. So when she walks into her apartment and finds Chloe's body, her actions don't seem that weird. I'm going to analyze the first few chapters so you can understand how Julie's character is developed, and personally, why I love how her character was written. So of course, Julie is kind of throwing herself a pity party at the beginning of the book, and at first I didn't really like it, and it's just because the nature of starting a novel, there has to be a little bit of exposition, and it's not necessarily my favorite because it's delivered in a lot of internal monologue. You don't get a lot of scenes. Like, we don't necessarily flash back to a ton of memories with Julie until the book further progresses. So at the beginning, it's just her explaining a lot of this stuff. It wasn't my favorite, but it's just par for the course when you're starting a novel. Regardless, you as the reader are put in a position where you feel sympathetic towards Julie. So after she gives you this explanation, we flash back into present day, what she's doing in that moment. And you see Julie steal from the grocery store that she works at. Now, of course, stealing is objectively wrong, but Julie is stealing food. Of course, she's not as rich as her sister. She's going through it. And after everything she's been through, what's a little sandwich stealing? It's just one little measly thing, right? Well, when Julie walks into Chloe's apartment, again, because she's so worried and so caring towards her sister, what's the first thing that she does? Well, Julie finds a little dish at Chloe's front door that has, her keys, receipts, whatever. Oh, and an emerald ring. Julie doing the logical thing. She steals the ring. A little suspicious, Julie, but we're going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Then Julie decides to go on a self-guided tour of Chloe's apartment. Of course, because she's looking for Chloe, so she needs to make sure that no corner is left untouched. And then when she finds Chloe in the kitchen, of course she jumps into action and immediately calls the police, which is a huge breakthrough for Julie, by the way, because she has had past trauma with police. There was a point where she was in high school and someone called for a welfare check on her, and she was berated by her aunt, and the whole experience just left her very uneasy around police and figures of authority. So by her calling the police in this moment, she's being incredibly selfless. But wait, Julie's phone is dead, so of course she has to go into Chloe's room and get the charger. But wait, now there's automatic updates. Maybe she just needs to go find Chloe's phone and call from there. So after Julie bravely calls 911 from Chloe's phone, she decides that she needs some kind of distraction. All the stress, all the trauma, everything coming up after seeing a dead body, she needs to kind of zone out. What we might call rot. Although in this circumstance, it doesn't seem appropriate. But she decides to scroll through Chloe's social media while she has her phone open. Julie would have done this on her personal phone, but, automatic updates and whatnot. So what's going through her TikTok account? Is Chloe gonna care? No. She's dead. While she's scrolling through her social media, this is where Julie finds out that Chloe is making hundreds of $1,000s off of these videos. She looks through Chloe's email and finds out how much she was paid out for the sponsorship in their reuniting video, and learn just how much money Chloe made off of Julie's pain and suffering without paying her a single cent. So Chloe's been living it up while Julie has been living in squalor. How is that fair? If Julie had this kind of money, she would be a much better person than Chloe. She would use the money responsibly. She would use her platform more responsibly, so that when people say eat the rich, Julie would not be included. All in all, Julie would be a much better influencer than Chloe. This is a perfect example of how the author writes Julie in such a way that you can forgive her and even rationalize some of her actions. And it works in part by slowly escalating the level of her wrongdoings. Stealing a sandwich from the grocery store? Walmart can take the hit. Who really cares? What's one sandwich to a giant mega corporation? Taking Chloe's ring? She probably has 1,000,000 of them. She's not gonna notice, especially when her sister is poor and needs all the help she can get. Surely, Chloe can afford to lose one measly ring. Looking through Chloe's phone? Well, who wouldn't want to see how much these influencers are actually making? You can't blame her for being a little curious, am I right? Plus, Julie would see it eventually as they go through her stuff and do the funeral arrangements. But that's an example of how it slowly escalates and you gradually find yourself forgiving her for all these things. And even if you don't initially, seeing Julie surrounded by these other incredibly problematic influencers makes her actions seem a little less worse in comparison. And the author is also sure to mix in moments where Julie is genuinely compassionate and friendly and caring. But again, it's to lull you into a false sense of security. It was to a point where at the end of the book, major spoiler, when Julie kills all of the Belladonnas, aka 7 people and the other influencers that were part of this weird cult, you could kind of understand why she did it. At this point in the story, Bella Marie and the other Belladonnas had literally tied up another influencer, a black influencer at that, for calling them out for being racist. She had been drugging the other girls to make them more agreeable. Bella Marie literally admitted to killing Chloe, and I am not going to go into detail about this, but she made Julie eat something that no human being should eat. It was incredibly graphic, and I just want you to know that while I was reading this book, I was literally about to go have lunch, and I had to put that off for a solid hour because I almost threw up. It was very nasty, too descriptive. Tread lightly. Do with that information what you will. All that to say, These people were objectively crazy. So when Julie kills them in order to leave the island, you kinda understand why she had to do it. So when, at the end, Isla reports Julie to the police, I was literally like, what the Isla? I literally caught myself thinking like, how dare you, Isla? Julie literally saved you. How could you turn around and stab her in the back? What, did you want your little 5 minute to fame? Did you want more subscribers? That was literally my initial thought when I read that. Granted, it was very much like in the split second, and I had to remind myself. I closed the book and I was like, well, Julie is kind of the reason they locked Isla up in the first place. She completely forgot about her supposed best friend on the island. She kind of left Isla for dead. And then, of course, Julie literally killed people. So I had to grapple with that cognitive dissonance where initially I was kind of annoyed with Isla. And then I had to be like, no, she was so valid for doing that. How could I ever expect that she wasn't going to call the police or report this or talk about it in any kind of way? That's stupid. That's ridiculous. But it just goes to show how effective the writing is. It's so immaculate to the point where I literally could understand why Julie was doing this. It's beautiful. It's literally so masterful, and I could gag about this all day, but we're gonna move on for now. I am gonna talk briefly about the other characters. I don't have nearly as much to say as I did about Julie, and that's just because Julie is written so masterfully, and the other characters, like, yeah, they do have their moments to shine, but they're just not the focus for me personally. I want to talk a little bit about Chloe, which she's undeniably a very unlikable character as well. Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and say that most of these characters are portrayed in a way where you can't really root for anyone in good conscience, of course. The only person that I think is like fully absolved and a good person is probably Isla, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about her in just a second. So Chloe is incredibly unlikable as well, but whether or not she's a good person is debatable. Again, because Julie, our narrator, is so good at manipulating the reader, it's hard to tell with her. At times, she comes across as incredibly self-centered, shallow, and rude, but as Julie uncovers more about Chloe's life, you realize that she is three-dimensional. She has stuff that she was hiding from people, that she did try to do some good. She did miss her sister and wanted to reconnect with her. So we don't really know when Chloe transitioned away from being a good person to this heartless influencer, and it almost doesn't matter. They give you enough instances where Chloe is good and bad so that it's up to the reader's own interpretation, but it's not really the focus of the story. If you believe Chloe is a good or a bad person, it impacts whether or not you believe Julie is justified in taking her identity. But again, it almost doesn't matter because Julie is manipulating you. She has a way of justifying her own actions, so whether or not Chloe really deserved it doesn't really matter. It's almost irrelevant because you can't look at it objectively. Julie is impacting your own perceptions. And again, Chloe is an influencer. The way that she is being portrayed to us as the reader is not the whole truth. We are only seeing the parts of her that we are meant to. Something to think about as I go into the influencer section. But first, we're going to talk about the Belladonnas. So the Belladonnas are essentially this group of major influencers on all social media platforms that kind of surround this main girl known as Bella Marie. Bella Marie is like the queen of all things social media, and she surrounds herself with these other social media it girls. And in general, I think they're just meant to represent influencer culture as a whole. In this group, you have the fitness girlies, the react girlies that all they do is literally sit in front of a camera, watch videos, and say, damn, that's crazy. Then there's the makeup girlies, and of course, the girlies that are only famous for being conventionally attractive. Now, I don't know how intentional this is, but I'm just gonna say, at some point in the book, I literally could not remember these girls' names, but this book is split into two different parts. The first part is when Julie first takes over Chloe's identity and she's just kind of getting accustomed to this new life as an influencer. And then in part two, she goes on an island getaway with Bella Marie and the Belladonnas, and she's trapped on this island essentially. By the time we are deep into the second half and you are only surrounded by the Belladonnas, I literally could not differentiate between them. All of these girls, no joke, are white, blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Maybe the occasional brown eyes, but I really couldn't even say if that's true. I could not tell you any of their names, only that I'm sure at least one of them is named Emily, which I think is meant to be a greater commentary on influencers in general. That at some point there are just so many and of a specific demographic that it's hard to differentiate between them. They have no real personality and nothing unique about their content, especially the people that are just famous for being conventionally attractive. Which brings us into what this book is trying to say about influencer culture. So I'm going to speak on this topic from a very unique perspective where I don't really consider myself an influencer, but I do have a social media presence and I do have a platform. Now, I have been a consumer for a lot longer than I've been a content creator, but I can kind of see both sides. On the side of the influencer, there is something to be said about what social media does to your brain. In the book, we get to a point where Julie is literally on the verge of a meltdown because she's not getting as many views. Her comments aren't full of pure adoration. She's not getting that same dopamine that she did when she first took over Chloe's channel, which let me tell you, opening up social media and seeing a lot of likes, a lot of comments, and especially a lot of views is incredibly addicting. When my videos first started gaining a lot of traction, I found myself constantly refreshing my notifications and getting into a hole where I was just constantly chasing the high. I wanted to see what people were commenting. I wanted to see my view counts go up. I wanted to see more likes, and it was honestly a problem. It was objective obsession that I was going through, and I had to implement screen time for myself. Now I only allow myself to look at my analytics once, maybe twice a day, and for the express purpose of just making sure nothing went wrong with the upload. I have a lot of my social media notifications silenced for this same reason, because even though I like to think I have a lot of self-control and I do have an identity outside of being a content creator, I will get sucked back into the hole. And it has nothing to do with willpower or being shallow or whatever. It's just objectively addicting. You like dopamine. We are programmed to chase dopamine. So I can understand why Julie is constantly chasing that high and how the lack of dopamine is affecting her and her actions. And with that, that is my one and only point in favor of the influencer. Another interesting part about this book is hearing the perspectives of the other influencers, the Belladonnas, and how they complain about being famous. When they're all on the island together, they're like, man, we really need a break. No one knows how hard it is being us. I mean, I have to look pretty all the time. Sometimes I have to put a blurring filter on my videos. Ugh, you know how hard it is to Photoshop everything before I upload it on Instagram? God, try being an influencer for a day. Try it. Because anyone that says that it's easy is so far out of their mind, it's really funny. And one of the other influencers there, Isla, calls them out and literally says, it's not hard. And she herself is a major influencer. She has a platform, she has a following, and she's telling these girls, what are you talking about? Because yeah, creating content is objectively time consuming. Now, some content is a little less time consuming. I will say that my kind of content that I upload is a little time consuming for me. I mean, I have to read the book, analyze it, write a script, record the video, edit the video, upload the video. It's a lot of steps before you get this final product. But at the end of the day, this is something that I'm choosing to do. This is not my livelihood. This is not the main source of income for me. This is nothing close to a manual labor job or even a 9-to-5. So even though, yeah, I stress myself out sometimes making videos, I have no right to complain about the platform that I asked for. Which brings me to the point of the consumer, you guys, and all the other people that use social media to watch content from other people. As a consumer myself, social media is starting to annoy me. I scroll through TikTok, everything links back to the TikTok shop. I go on YouTube, every video is sponsored by someone. Every podcast, every reel, any kind of content I consume from social media has some kind of selling point. It is endless. Which we see something very similar happen with Julie in this book when she goes to spread her sister's ashes in the middle of this video that First of all, she's recording herself spreading ashes. In the middle of this video, she literally took a brand deal with a therapy app. Definitely not one that exists in real life that a lot of influencers work with, despite all the controversy and backlash and all the evidence that it's not actually effective and it's kind of a scam, allegedly. Definitely not real at all. So yeah, this book is criticizing influencers, but it's also asking you as the consumer to think critically. I mentioned this in my review of Sunrise on the Reaping and Propaganda, but you have to realize that everyone is trying to sell you something. Hell, even I am selling you something. Even though I don't have brand deals or affiliate links, I'm selling you this book. I'm trying to convince you to read it and go out and buy it or check it out from your library. Although I mostly recommend checking out from your library. Times are hard. And especially with the government trying to cut funding to libraries all over the country, yeah, we need to be supporting our libraries. But that's not the point. Which, yeah, me trying to get you to read a book is par for the course for a book recommendation. But my point being that you should be aware that it's happening, that everything I'm saying, everything I'm choosing to include in this video is to highlight the book and to outline everything I liked about it to convince you to read it. It's the same way that when there's books I don't like, I highlight the reasons I don't like it. Even though I usually give evidence to support why I don't like a book, I give you all the reasons why I don't like a book, and I try to be as objective as possible when I give those kinds of reviews. I'm still trying to persuade you to act in a certain way. The same way that people can review those same books that I don't like and highlight all the positives, even when I don't. Now, I want you to know that in any of my reviews, any of my videos I make, I'm not doing anything maliciously. I'm not falsely portraying any of the books that I read, and I'm just genuinely sharing my thoughts. I don't make these videos from the perspective of me trying to sell you something, but at the end of the day, I kinda am. We have to understand that what we see on the screen is only what someone wants you to see. Everything you see within these four corners is curated. I've put everything in a specific spot for a specific reason. So with all content, what you see is important, but you also have to ask yourself, what aren't you seeing? What is outside the four corners of your phone screen? Why am I only showing you this very specific and very curated version of myself? Why does someone use a blurring filter and hide their pimples? Well, maybe they have an affiliate link to a skincare brand. Why is someone flaunting wealth on the internet? Well, maybe they're trying to sell you a course so you can be rich like them. Even though that Rolls Royce they're showing you in the video is rented by the hour and that Louis Vuitton bag is a knockoff. Now, of course, I'm not saying that all content creators are malicious and the things that they're doing in their videos is to manipulate you as the viewer. But as a consumer, it's important that you understand the kind of content that you're interacting with on a day-to-day basis. And most importantly, that you're okay with what certain people are selling you. Me trying to sell you on reading a book is nothing compared to someone trying to sell you skincare brands that don't work or selling online therapy that is dubious at best. You just need to be aware and make conscious decisions about the kind of people that you're platforming, what you're interacting with, and who you trust on the internet. This book is giving us an inside look into the world of influencers, and even though it's fictional and it's a thriller and, of course, exaggerated for the horror, it's not completely wrong. It's not all made up, and it is rooted in some kind of reality. While influencer culture is the main focus of this book, I do want to talk about another major theme, and that is race. As I mentioned, one of the other influencers that we get to meet in this book is Isla. She is a Black woman up and coming in the world of influencers, and Bella Marie takes her under her wing. Now, Julie is experiencing all of this influencer stuff for the very first time. She's out of her element. She is very unaware of just the levels of wealth, how shallow people can be, and who they're really like behind the phone screen. So she finds herself creating a friendship with Isla, someone else who's incredibly new to this world and also another woman of color. Really, I think this book has something greater to say about solidarity, especially as other POCs connect with the Black community specifically. As a fellow POC, Julie gets to take advantage of Isla, using her when she wants acceptance and rejecting her when she's trying to appeal to the other Belladonnas. In private, Julie and Isla can laugh about white people nonsense and make fun at the Belladonnas' expense. But when Julie wants their acceptance, she uses her proximity to whiteness to outcast Isla and make herself seem more agreeable. She can go back and forth, choosing when to be an ally and when to appeal to white people. And it's all at the expense of Isla, who is being true to herself and calling out the other Belladonnas, and rightfully so. When Isla rightfully calls out that they are favored by the algorithm for being white and POC creators objectively have it harder, they call her racist. And despite Julie 100% agreeing with Isla on all her points, she refuses to back her up. And this is, again, so that she can gain their favor. She doesn't want to be the one to rock the boat, which I think is a greater commentary and honestly a little bit of a criticism towards other POCs, because we can recognize that one of the most oppressed and disadvantaged groups is Black women. I forgot where I read this, so I will fact check myself, but I know in the city of Chicago, the neighborhoods are outlined in such a way where the bad side of town just so happens to be where there's more Black neighborhoods. But the redlining is not as obvious, where on one side you have white people, on the other side you have Black people. There is an in-between. And typically the buffer between these good white neighborhoods and the bad Black neighborhoods are Hispanic communities. This idea of proximity to whiteness is such a rampant issue in the Hispanic community, and honestly, it pisses me off. I saw one video where they were talking to Hispanic children and asked them which doll looks more like them and presented them with a white doll and a Black doll, and they picked the white one. Literally blonde hair, blue eyes, pale baby doll. They picked that one. It just speaks to these greater issues of colorism and desperately trying to gain favor of white people. I know the way that I'm talking sounds incredibly confrontational, but I want you to know that I am criticizing my own community as well. I'm not saying that white people or other POC communities are inherently bad. I am just saying that you need to be aware that this is happening. That by trying to gain favor, you are alienating your fellow people of color, which is ultimately what this book is trying to criticize. The villain of Julie Chan is Dead is not white people. It's the Belladonnas, it's Bella Marie, it's these specific people. Honestly, it's even Julie. She is one of the villains of this story. Just like in real life, the villain is not white people as a whole or these other POC groups as a whole. It is the specific people that perpetuate colorism, racism, and don't have any solidarity for their fellow POCs. So if you are taking offense to any of the criticisms I have towards POCs and white people, you're probably who I'm talking about. Because if you know that you don't engage in any colorism, racism, or anything like that, then I'm not talking about you. Then you have nothing to fear. I'm telling you, the only good person in this book is probably Isla. This poor girl did nothing wrong. She literally just wanted to be an influencer. And she went to this cute little island retreat and they tied her up and didn't give her water. She was literally gonna die. But anyway, that's enough of my soapbox. Now we're gonna move on to the religious cult. So at the end of the book, we find out that Bella Marie and the other Belladonnas have been making sacrifices to a mythical god in exchange for followers. Initially, Julie's incredibly skeptical about this, but in the end, she seems to be fully on board because she's about to go on trial, and yet people are flooding her comments. She's getting more views, more subscribers, and people are actually on her side. And she convinces herself that this is because she killed the Belladonnas and gave them up as sacrifice to this god. And throughout their time on the island, there are just enough coincidences to make you think that maybe this god figure actually exists. But before Julie is officially on board with this whole cult thing, she gives a lot of reason as to why these things are just coincidences. Unfortunately, one of the other Belladonnas on the trip had to leave early after she had a miscarriage. And the other Belladonnas are convinced that she gave up her baby in exchange for influence. And Julie rightfully brings up that maybe the reason she had a miscarriage was because she had been heavily drinking, smoking, and doing drugs whilst pregnant. But the other Belladonnas are convinced that it's the god that is giving her this power and took her sacrifice or whatever. Honestly, and props to the author once again, because at some point I was like, you know what? Maybe this is mythical. Maybe this is something supernatural. But no. It's not. I think some of it is a little up to interpretation, but otherwise, I don't think there's a lot of standing on an actual god figure in this book. I think this is meant, again, to be a greater commentary on influencers, and this god figure is meant to be the algorithm. There is this idea amongst content creators about appealing to the algorithm where it's really treated like a deity where you are either in favor with or out of favor. The algorithm gods can be the one that push your video out, the reason you go viral. It's up to their discretion whether or not you find fame on the internet. Which, yeah, uploading content and having a random video go viral can feel magical, but in the end, it's just a numbers game. It's not fate or destiny. It's literally an algorithm, a formula created to, perhaps, favor certain looking people and certain looking content more than others. But a lot of these huge influencers have just found a way to crack the code. It's not something mythical, magical, or whatever. It's just about appealing to this formula, which is exactly what the girls in this book are doing. Julie is getting a lot more famous on the internet because she's literally on trial for murder. Overall, I really think this book is just trying to pull back the curtain, really make you come face to face with the world of influencers, the reality behind it, and make you think critically about the content you consume. Honestly, I could gush about this book over and over, but I think I'm gonna leave the video here for now. Of course, goes without saying, I would give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it, despite the fact that at times I was thoroughly disgusted. Some of the gore and the graphic stuff I was not prepared for, but I did go outside of my comfort zone a little bit, and I was happy with the results, I will say. I do recommend listening to the audiobook. In my opinion, I think that the narrator sounds a lot like Not Even Emily, that one YouTuber. I watch her videos. I love her videos so much, but like their cadence and their mannerisms and the way that they talk is literally the same. Overall, it was a very enjoyable experience. I highly recommend that you check out this book. And of course, follow the author on social media. She's a debut author, and I think she really ate with this. So with that being said, that's the end of the video. I hope that you liked it. If you did, please be sure to leave a comment, like, and of course, subscribe to my channel. Some of you guys are not subscribed and you just watch the video, which, you know, is okay, but I would prefer if you subscribe. You can also find me on other social media platforms if you just can't get enough of this content at Listen to Kristen on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. I will say that this book did make me think critically, even about myself as a content creator, and really just realigned me with my own values and reaffirmed to me that I could never, ever be like these people. So with that being said, a portion of the ad revenue from this video will be donated. Right now, our public resources are being attacked, including our libraries and PBS, aka the broadcast system that was specifically made to bring education to children in lower income households. Yeah, that's not okay with me. So a portion of the ad revenue will be donated to those organizations. So if you like this video, please be sure to share it to increase my reach. I would really appreciate it, guys. When I started this channel, I did want a more focus on donating and just in general being active in my community. And I don't feel like I've been doing a lot of that recently. So I want to get back to doing that. So yeah, I also encourage you guys to donate if you can. If you cannot, then just watch this video and I will donate in your honor. But anyway, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. I hope you all have a lovely day. I'm gonna go have Chipotle now. Thank you. It's so funny that I decided to record this bit today because I literally have 2 pimples right here. It looks like a vampire bit me on the side of the head. Don't forget to put on my skin blurring filter. Sorry, God, I can't speak. I can't even pretend to be inauthentic. So yeah, I know it doesn't look like it, and a lot of people do compliment me on my skin, but I'm human. I got pimples. It's just hard to see because the camera's a little away from me, but I am human if you had any doubts. Thank you.